The day my HOA fined me $500 because my mailbox was supposedly the wrong black. I laughed so hard I almost spilled coffee all over the notice. That laugh died the second I woke up a week later and found the whole mailbox ripped out of the ground like somebody had declared war on a piece of metal. And the really funny part, the people who did it thought they were enforcing neighborhood standards. I'm the kind of guy people call paranoid when they don't know the full story. I call it being prepared. I keep receipts, manuals, emails, meeting notes, photos, copies of bylaws, copies of the copies. If paper exists, there's a decent chance I've got it filed somewhere in my house and backed up on a hard drive. My wife used to tease me about it, said I documented life like I was expecting to be audited by God. Then a contractor once tried to charge us twice for the same job, and my little habit saved us $3,000. After that, she stopped making fun of the folders. Our neighborhood used to be peaceful in that quiet, slightly boring, deeply comforting kind of way. Clean lawns, people waving from porches, kids riding bikes until the streetlights came on. You knew your neighbors, and more importantly, you didn't know too much about your neighbors, which is usually the sweet spot. Then the board got a new HOA president, and suddenly the whole place started feeling like a subdivision run by airport security. I won't use her real name, so let's call her Elaine. Elaine had pearls, a clipboard, and that dangerous kind of confidence some people get when nobody's told them no in a while. She treated HOA meetings like shareholder briefings and talked about community cohesion like she was rebuilding Rome instead of arguing about fence stains and flower beds. The woman loved rules so much I'm pretty sure she'd have regulated sunlight if she could have figured out the paperwork. My mailbox had been sitting at the end of my driveway for 12 years. Solid black metal brass numbers, heavy duty, built like it expected trouble. Cost me a few $100 back when I installed it, and it was one of those things you put in once and forget about. It met postal requirements, looked sharp, and had already survived more than one kid trying to whack it with a baseball bat. Around the neighborhood it had a reputation, not officially of course, but enough people had seen what happened when somebody messed with it that folks called it the tank. Then one spring afternoon I opened the mail and found a violation notice printed on thick paper like it had been issued by a court. According to the HOA, my mailbox was 2 inches too tall and painted in non-compliant black. Not red, not bright blue, not some ridiculous novelty color. Black. Just allegedly the wrong black. Their approved shade, and I'm not making this up, was midnight black. Mine apparently was something closer to classic black, which I guess is what criminals use. So I did what I always do. I measured everything, pulled the original receipt, found the product specs, and then went digging through the bylaws. Took about an hour, but there it was in section 4.7, plain as day. Any exterior fixture installed before the adoption of new design guidelines was grandfathered in unless it posed a safety hazard or violated federal law. My mailbox had been there for over a decade. Case closed, right? That's what I thought. I sent a polite email to the board, attached the clause, attached photos, attached measurements, kept the tone clean and professional. No insults, no sarcasm, no, "Are you people out of your minds?" 2 days later, I got a response that basically said yes, they saw the clause, but the board reserved the right to interpret grandfathering however it saw fit in the interest of neighborhood appearance. In other words, the rules meant whatever they wanted them to mean. And that's when I understood this had nothing to do with height or paint. It was a power test. My mailbox just happened to be the first thing they picked to kneel. A week later, I walked outside and found Elaine herself standing beside it with a tape measure in one hand and a paint swatch card in the other, like she was inspecting the Sistine Chapel. She stretched the tape from the ground to the top of the post and loudly announced 47 inches, which would have been impressive if she hadn't planted the tape on top of a rock. I pointed that out. She ignored me. Then she held up the paint card, tilted her head, and informed me with great sorrow for the Republic that my mailbox was more charcoal than midnight. That was the moment it stopped being annoying and started becoming theater. She wasn't measuring anything, she was performing authority. And to make sure there was an audience, she did it while one of the neighbors was out walking his dog. After she left, that neighbor old-timer named Frank lived there longer than anybody wandered over. Shaking his head, he looked at my mailbox, looked down the street, and said, "Son, if that thing hurts property values, then this whole town's doomed." Then he lowered his voice and added, Watch her. People like that don't threaten unless they've already decided what they're going to do. Frank ended up being right. 2 weeks passed. No emails, no calls, no follow-up. I started to think maybe Elaine had moved on to terrorizing somebody else over mulch depth or porch lights. Then on a Tuesday morning, I looked out my bedroom window and saw my mailbox lying in the yard like a body at a crime scene. The concrete footing was shattered. The post was bent. Chunks of dirt were torn up around it. Taped to my front door was a fine notice, $500 for non-compliance, plus a threat of a lien if I didn't pay. I wish I could tell you I went outside yelling. I didn't. I just stood there in my socks, staring at the lawn, and felt this cold, steady kind of clarity settle into my chest. Whoever did this had crossed the line from petty to stupid, and they didn't know it yet. I went straight to the security footage. A few months earlier, after package thefts started creeping through the neighborhood, I'd installed cameras. One of them was hidden inside a decorative birdhouse on the oak tree by the driveway. Good resolution, infrared, wide-angle cloud backup. At 2:17 that morning, a pickup truck pulled up. 2 men got out. One was Elaine's husband. The other was another board member I'd seen at every HOA meeting for the last year. They had a shovel, a sledgehammer, and all the confidence of men doing something they thought would never come back on them. They tore out my mailbox in 15 minutes. I saved the footage 3 times, uploaded it, then started making calls. Not to the HOA, not even to my lawyer first. My first call was to the United States Postal Inspection Service. A lot of people don't know this, but once a mailbox is in active service, tampering with it isn't just neighborhood drama anymore. It falls under federal protection. The inspector I spoke to got a whole lot more interested the second I said I had clear video of HOA, board members destroying it as part of an enforcement action. His tone changed fast. He told me to preserve everything, not clean up a thing, and file a formal complaint immediately. By lunchtime, I had a police report, a federal case number, and a growing sense that Elaine had just marched her little suburban dictatorship straight into a wall. And because I am by nature a little petty when properly motivated, I went to the hardware store that afternoon and bought the cheapest, ugliest temporary mailbox I could find. Thin, white plastic black stick-on numbers mounted on 2 rough 2x4s like a middle school shop project. It met every postal requirement and looked absolutely terrible, which honestly was part of the healing process. 3 days later, the HOA called an emergency meeting. The clubhouse was full by neighborhood standards, maybe 15 people folding chairs, stale coffee, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Elaine sat at the front with her board speaking in that controlled, righteous voice people use when they want to sound calm and superior at the same time. She started talking about standards, values, visual harmony, all that nonsense. Then she pointed to my temporary mailbox and suggested certain homeowners were deliberately undermining the neighborhood. When she called for a vote to uphold the fine and begin lien proceedings, I stood up with a manila folder in my hand. You could feel the room change. I walked to the front table, laid down the first document, and said, "This is the police report for the destruction of my property." Then the second, "This is my formal complaint to the U.S. Postal Inspection Service." Then the third, "And this is confirmation that they've opened a federal investigation." That got quiet. I explained real calm that while the HOA might have opinions about aesthetics, a mailbox in service is protected under federal law, and destroying one can lead to felony charges, fines, restitution, and prison time. Then I told them I had video, faces, truck, license plate, tools, timestamp the whole thing. I didn't need to raise my voice. I didn't need to threaten anybody. The truth was doing all the heavy lifting for me. That's when the twist hit the room. Elaine's husband, sitting in the third row, went white as drywall. One of the other homeowners actually whispered, "Oh my God." Then Frank, bless that old man, spoke up from the back and said loud enough for everybody to hear, "You all tried to ruin this man over a mailbox, and now you've dragged the whole neighborhood into federal trouble. Somebody better explain to me where our dues are going." That was the moment the board lost the room. The meeting basically disintegrated. Homeowners started asking about liability insurance, whether the board had approved nighttime property destruction, whether the association's policy covered criminal acts. Elaine kept saying this was a misunderstanding, that they were simply enforcing community standards. And I'll give her this. She stayed committed to that sentence longer than most people would have. But it was over. A couple weeks later, I was sitting in a law office downtown with my attorney across from 3 lawyers for the HOA and a representative from their insurance company. You know you've made an impression when an insurance adjuster looks at you like you're holding a lit flare in a fireworks tent. They opened with a settlement offer, tried to make it sound generous, then quietly floated the idea that maybe I could de-escalate my involvement with the federal case. My lawyer almost smiled. He reminded them federal prosecutors do not care about neighborhood peace offerings when there's video and confessions involved. Then he laid out our number, restitution, legal fees, damages, the whole thing. The insurance rep got very serious after that. 3 days later, they came back with the full amount plus one condition from their side that was even sweeter than the money. The entire board had to resign. Apparently, insurance companies get a little skittish when HOA volunteers start committing felonies in the name of curb appeal. So they paid. All 5 of them stepped down. And 6 weeks after my complaint, federal charges were filed against the 2 men who destroyed the mailbox. Both pled guilty to avoid jail. Both paid heavy fines. Neither of them will ever serve on an HOA board again. Elaine wasn't charged personally, but life got expensive in a hurry. Legal fees have a funny way of humbling people who used to measure other folks' paint colors for sport. Last I heard, she and her husband had to sell the house. As for me, I took part of that settlement money and built the most absurdly over-engineered mailbox you've ever seen. Steel core, stone pillar, reinforced footing, landscaped base, the whole thing. It's beautiful. It's legal. It's probably visible from space. And every time I pull in the driveway and see it standing there, I get this quiet little reminder that bullies always look strongest right before they hit the part of the story where paper trails, cameras, and consequences show up. The thing I learned from all of it wasn't just know your rights, though, yeah, that matters. It was something a little uglier and a little truer than that. A lot of people confuse authority with permission. They think having a title means the rules bend for them, that procedure becomes morality if they say it in an official tone. But power without restraint doesn't become leadership. It becomes arrogance wearing a name tag. These days, the new board handles actual problems, drainage, road repairs, community events, real-life stuff. Nobody's standing in driveways comparing shades of black anymore. Frank still walks his dog past my house, sometimes slows down, looks at the mailbox like it's a war memorial, and chuckles to himself. Honestly, I get it. So, yeah. Karma showed up wearing a federal badge, and I'd be lying if I said that didn't feel satisfying. But here's the question. When someone in a position of small local power crosses the line, how far is too far when you fight back? Is using every legal tool available justice, or is that just a cleaner kind of revenge? Tell me what you think. Who was really in the wrong here? And have you ever dealt with somebody who mistook petty authority for real power?